Greetings and welcome to the latest edition of Political Empire. I'm your host, Kim Pierceall with the Press Enterprise, here to give you all of the latest political happenings that are happening here in our great Inland Empire. We're going to start off with news headlines, and then after that, we're going to talk about campaign finance in a few key races here, and also the judicial races that are going on that are kind of rare. So first off, news headlines. Big news this week regarding Norco Prison. It's, I guess, been rumored for quite some time that it was going to close. Well, this week, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation announced that it is on the list, indeed, to close potentially by 2016 in an effort to save $1.5 billion annually. It's part of a bigger effort to save $1.5 billion annually.
We plan to close the California Rehabilitation Center in Norwalk, right, Norco. We've been in contact with our employees there this morning. This is also something we propose to do at the 4-year mark, but it's our least efficient, most expensive, one of our least safe, oldest prisons, and it's appropriate at this time to begin to think about moving out of those facilities that are so expensive to run.
Norco would save the state about $160 million a year if it were to close. Right now, it has about 3,900 inmates. City officials are happy, but businesses and, of course, the employees of the prison, not so much. Also, 91 Freeway, it got funding, key funding this week from the feds. The Inland Empire will get toll lanes, basically stretching from Orange County into Corona. So for the first time, IE is going to have toll lanes, and this will involve a $444 million loan. The total cost to widen the 91 Freeway is going to cost about $1.3 billion. This is a key part of it to widen it in that stretch, Corona leading into Orange County. And then finally, the Mojave Cross. This has been in the news quite a bit. It was very contentious because it brought up First Amendment issues and whether or not a cross could be placed on federal land. So the 7-foot tall cross had been in the Mojave at the Mojave National Preserve, and it was removed and still is missing. But in the meantime, there were legal cases, court cases, etc. Now a new settlement says that it can return to the Mojave, and basically through a land swap in which a private individual who has land in the Mojave Preserve is going to trade 5 acres of his land for 1 acre where the cross will be placed. So it will technically no longer be federal land, it will be private land where this Mojave Cross will be placed. So if you want more information on that, of course, check back at pe.com. And our first segment today is about campaign finance, huge issue during the election that's going on right now. And luckily, I've got 2 experts on the phone with me, Ben Goad in Washington, D.C. Hi, Ben.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent.
Fantastic. And then Jim Miller in Sacramento. Jim, how you doing?
Hey, Kim. Thanks. Good.
Good. Well, we're going to talk first with Ben about campaign finance records. There were, I think the quarterly reports were recently released. Tell us why it's important to take a look at these and maybe what some of the highlights are.
Right. As you said, these are quarterly reports that candidates for congressional races have to file with the Federal Election Commission. And the latest round it's important because it's the first set of these reports released since the list of candidates for each race was finalized. And there were definitely some notable totals. A bit of a surprise, Raul Ruiz, who has never held political office, outraised all of the other inland congressional candidates in the first quarter.
And he's running in the 36th district against Mary Bono-Mack?
That's right, 36. He's a Democrat, and that district stretches all the way from the Coachella Valley into the Pass area, the San Jacinto, Hemet. And Ruiz brought in more than 270,000, as I said, leading all the candidates. Bono-Mack was a short way behind with 258,000. But Ruiz still has a lot of work to do. He's still in the hole in terms of overall funding. Bono-Mack, has a war chest of over 600,000, and so he's got some catching up to do. He's got about a quarter of that amount.
And as far as the other races, we've got the 41st Congressional District, and that's got 5 candidates, but in the lead, it seems to be Mark Takano and John Tavallone. What's going on there? Right.
Those were certainly the big, they're leading the money race, and it continues to be a very tight race as far as fundraising goes. Takano had a bit of an edge in the first quarter. He took in about 211,000 compared to Tavallone's 177,000. but I get the feeling these guys are just getting started. This is a seat that both Democrats and Republicans want badly.
And the 31st has been really contentious. We've got 6 candidates total, but then 4 that have been leading the money race. Talk to us a little bit about that, because we've got Bob Dutton, Gary Miller, Justin Kim, and Pete Aguilar.
Right. Aguilar, a Democrat, he's the mayor of Redlands. He won the quarter. He collected about a little more than $220,000. Gary Miller, congressman from out in Diamond Bar, moving into the area, is a close second. He raised $209,000. But like Bono Mac, he's got a big war chest. He's got more than $1 million, so he's way ahead in that sense. And then after them, Justin Kim, who's a Democrat and attorney, in a bit of a surprise, came in third with $109,000. And Bob Dutton, who's a Republican state senator, raised a little over $75,000.
And Jim, as far as where all this money is coming from, because these are pretty hefty totals, are they coming from donors in the area, outside the area? What's going on?
Right. Well, we are doing a story for a little later in the week, looking at where all this money is coming from, and in terms of candidates for Congress and the legislature from our area, I mean, it's a vast sum in this election cycle. So far, it's about $9.5 million, and it's coming from every state in the country. And the vast majority of it is coming from outside the various districts that the candidates are running for.
And why is that? And are they coming from special interest groups in particular, or are there folks that are really vested in what's going on here in the Inland Empire outside of the area?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, in the case of, there are a lot of statewide and national associations that are based in Sacramento or back in Washington, and what they'll say is, look, we may be based here, but we have membership in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Some are, and then there are other donors that are special interests, companies, that are just based outside the area, but want to be involved in the process.
Well, Ben and Jim, thanks so much for keeping an eye on all the money, and we'll be looking forward to the story that's coming out later this week, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks so much, guys. And we'll be back soon with Rich DeAtley to talk about the judicial races. We've talked quite a bit about congressional races, state races, local mayoral races. We haven't really spent a lot of time talking about judicial races. And luckily today we have our resident legal expert, Rich DeAtley, in the studio today. Rich, thanks so much for joining us. And Rich is going to tell us why this is actually kind of a rare circumstance. So why is this rare?
Well, it's been about 18 years since there's been a challenge to an incumbent judge in Riverside County, and now you have 4 of these challenges.
And which judges are being challenged?
Right, there's 2 out in the desert and 2 that are seated in Riverside. Out in the desert, it's Judge Victoria Cameron and Judge James Cox. In Riverside County, it's Judge Craig Reamer, or seated in Riverside, rather, it's Judge Craig Reamer and Judge Gary Trambarger.
And who is challenging Reamer?
Reamer is being challenged by a supervising deputy district attorney named John Henry.
And if I understand correctly, it's been pretty contentious in the legal community because John Henry has been backed quite heavily by the union that represents the deputy DAs. Why has that been a concern for other members of the legal community?
It's usually a collegial bunch of lawyers in Riverside County, but this has really sort of split them up in different ways. A lot of the attorneys, especially on the civil side, are seeing this as an effort by the prosecutors union to sort of push their weight around. They've given more than $100,000 in contributions to John Henry. On the other side of the coin, the prosecutors say that Reamer and Trambarger both have records that make them stand out, particularly with them, and not in a good way, and that they believe it's been years of frustration and they want to challenge these judges. There is a concern that a group could push by the supporters of the judges, that this is a group pushing its way into deciding who gets to be a judge in Riverside County.
And curious too, on a lighter note, is there a revival of Kennedy and Nixon in this race?
There is, but not directly. The challenger for Gary Trambarger is Richard T. Nixon, and the challenger for Judge James Cox out in the desert is Michael Kennedy.
Gotcha. So I bet they, or at least Richard T. Nixon, I'm sure, gets a lot of questions about
his namesake. He does, and he acknowledges it right away, usually.
Well, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. We talked a lot about campaign finance, the money being spent on elections, whether it's congressional races or judicial races. And if you're looking for any updates on political news and the elections that are coming forward, be sure to check Political Empire every week and PE.com all the time. I'm your host, Kim Pierceall. See you next time.